I am so excited to announce that iDriveAClassic is now sponsored by Adrian Flux, one of the UK's leading classic car insurers. If you're looking for classic car insurance, I've popped a link to Adrian Flux in the description box below.
Hi guys, it's Steph from iDriveAClassic. Now today I'm back with a car which I feel like you used to be able to spot one in an Asda car park anywhere you went, but nowadays you just don't see them anywhere. It's the very humble Nissan Sunny B11. Now, this car is really interesting because my friends Aaron and Ryan got offered it for less than £300. So when they rang me, they sent me a few pictures, you know, one of those 6-footer pictures where every car looks amazing. I was like, oh yeah, bargain of the century. And I've turned up today and if you've ever seen Keeping Up Appearances, I definitely feel like it's something Daisy and Onslow would have had. But look, it's all in good jest because we're very good friends. And I'm really excited to show you this car today. A lot of people think that classic cars are totally out of the reach of a budding enthusiast, but I feel like most younger drivers could definitely scrape up 300 and get themselves a project like this and get going with it. And plus you learn so much, you have so many laughs along the way. So today I'm going to show you what I think is definitely an attainable budget classic car for every enthusiast. So let's kick off and I'll show you around the outside. And remember, this is not by any stretch of the imagination a concours car, but it's certainly a really exciting project for the lads to get their teeth into over lockdown. So let's crack on. As I said on the intro, when we watch this video, remember we're looking at a car which costs less than £300 and is at the start of its resto journey. So please be appreciative of that when you're leaving comments. And I know that some people won't consider this a classic, but really sorry for all the people that think that only mid-century cars can be classics. This is a classic too, especially to younger people, which when we meet the owner, you'll see that he is one of them. So the Sunny name was used on several Nissans, and the one we're looking at today is the Nissan Sunny B11. So the Sunny name was used from 1966 through to 2006 across various models, and I believe the B11 was the 5th generation. Now, if you're watching this from somewhere other than the UK, especially from I think America and Canada, you might know it as either the Datsun Sunny, the Nissan Sentra or the Nissan Tsuru. It was available for a short period of time, and in fact it was only available I think from 1981 through to 1985, which makes this example on a C-Reg a proper latecomer. Although I know that for anybody who is big on these older Nissans, that I do know that they made them in Asia for quite a bit longer. The B11 Sunny was a step up from the previous Sunny and was the first front-wheel drive Sunny, which meant that it beat its rival, the Corolla, to front-wheel drive status by around 18 months, which of course is huge in car buyer time. But of course Nissan weren't newcomers to front-wheel drive because they'd first used front-wheel drive with the Cherry all the way back in 1970. It was also the first Sunny to be available with a diesel engine, which was available I believe around a year after launch, and it was a 1.7, but the car we're looking at today is a 1.3 petrol. Now I know in Japan you've got various spin-offs and special editions including the Laurel Spirit, but over here in the UK we've got the 1.3 DX, the 1.3 GL, the 1.5 DX, the 1.5 GL Auto and the 1.5 SGL and 1.5 SGL Spirit variants. Now we're in a 1.3 today, as you'll be able to see from the back of the car. It is a little bit gutless, but when we go out for a drive, I'm going to explain why I think that is. So the Sunny brought a lot of newness to the brand, but it also said goodbye to something rather special, which was the Datsun name. So although the first couple of years of production, I think it was like 81, 82, there was a small Datsun badge to the boot, the Sunny was actually the first Nissan to abandon the old name officially. I believe the name was dropped completely, so the Datsun name, in 1983, and that was across all the cars. So the specs on these 1.3s that we're testing here today are pretty decent for an everyday car in the mid-80s. It should do around 0 to 60 in about 14.4 seconds with a maximum speed of around 93 miles per hour. The car from new on the 1.3, so this one is an auto, which we'll talk about when we go for a drive,
but they got issued with manual box, and I believe you could have picked a 4 or a 5 speed. So the engine in this Sunny is the E13, which was used for a fair bit across Nissan, including the Pulsar, and the 1.5 Sunnys had the E15 engine, which was used in the larger engine Pulsars and also the Prairies. The braking system on this is exactly what I expected, so it's discs to the front and drums to the rear. And I'll tell you why it wasn't a surprise, because by this point in the 80s, the vast majority of 80s cars were fitting everything with disc to front, drum to back. But if you're looking for a usable classic, a classic with that setup is a far surer bet in modern traffic than some of the earlier and mid-century classics, because when it's drums all round, you really have to anticipate what people are going to be doing. Fuel consumption on these isn't the worst either, and we're promised a rather decent 58 miles per gallon on long journey adventures, and a fair but not amazing 34 miles per gallon around town, which, to be honest, on those around town figures, I know it probably sounds quite low compared to modern cars, but when you're looking at other stuff from the 80s, that is around average, if I'm honest. So overall, as you'll see, the Nissan Sunny, when we take it out, is pretty interesting in its rarity, but overall it's just a comfy older car that gets you from A to B with very little fanfare. Now, what I find really interesting is that, of course, Nissans of this era were coming into a very different space to where we are today. So nowadays it's really commonplace that someone might say that they're buying a Japanese car, but in the 70s and 80s it was still quite sometimes a bit of an out there choice. So whilst these sold quite well in the UK and Ireland, in mainland Europe, where people are a lot more wedded to their homegrown stuff, they didn't really make much of an impression. And I think as well that it's a funny era for stuff like this, in that people seem to appreciate older stuff a lot more. But I think that saving stuff like this is just as special as saving something from the 50s or 60s, because with so few examples left, they're quickly dying out. Now, with so few examples left in the UK today, it does make this a really interesting project. And with it costing less than £300, it feels like a car, and as you can see, it's not an absolute basket case. So I think that anyone with a bit of knowledge, an internet connection, and some positivity could probably take this on. But let's be honest, with resale values being quite low compared to more traditional classics, who would? And I know that's quite savage to say, but let's be honest, it is true. So I thought what I'd do is I'd introduce you all to the owner, Aaron, and his partner, Ryan, who've taken this car on. And I think they've realised after taking it on that there's a lot more involved. But I wanted to find out what's motivating them to, first of all, take this car on and to stick at it as well. So I'll hand you over to two of my very good friends, Aaron and Ryan.
Hello, my name's Aaron and this is my 1986 Nissan Sunny Spirit GS.
And my name's Ryan and I'm his other half.
So we bought this car in September. I got a text in early September to say, from someone I know, saying, Aaron, my friend has given up driving. She's got a 1986 Nissan Sunny that she doesn't want to scrap it because it belonged to her father. Is there something you'd be interested in? Obviously, of course I'm going to be. So I got in contact with the owner and I agreed to buy it over the phone. I'd only seen pictures. Between me agreeing to buy the car and me collecting it, the fuel pump actually failed on it. So the owner amazingly managed to source one and get it on the road. I went and collected it in September, end of September. The day after collecting it, it broke down on me. Got that repaired, and then it broke down a subsequent 3 times that week, and I'd really lost heart with it. I was like, right, I'm ready to scrap it. Eventually, we got it to a stage where, right, okay, we think it's not going to break down again. Got it through an MOT, everything was fine. And then I drove it down to the West Sussex coast where it decided to break down again. So I'd really lost heart in it. I wanted to scrap it, but I was told, no, you're not allowed to scrap it, you're not allowed to sell it. And this is where Ryan stepped in and done a hell of a lot of mechanical work on it, as I'm sure he will now explain to you.
Yeah, so the first problem was that the battery wasn't charging, and actually that turned out just to be the fact that the auxiliary belt wasn't tight enough. So we tightened that up, and there was a nice healthy voltage going across the battery, so we thought, winner. So once the car was running and, you know, it seemed to be okay, we then found that there was a problem with the indicators not working and a problem with the horn. Turned out to be a couple of dry joints, which I soldered up, got it through its MOT, and it was brilliant. Then, as Aaron said, brought it down to the West Sussex coast and went out for a drive in it, and the alternator started screaming its nuts off. So then had to come off the road again, got a new alternator for it, and whilst we fitted the new alternator, we also changed the timing belt as well as the water pump.
Yep.
And you did a service on it, didn't you?
Service on it. It's an automatic transmission service. Had a new thermostat, coolant flush. It's had a hell of a lot of work, but I wanted to give up on this car. But then when I look at it, and I think, it's done 141,000 miles, and it's lasted 35, 36 years. So it'd be a real shame to end the car's life there. So we're still going strong, and I sincerely hope that all the mechanical issues have been sorted, and it doesn't let me down again, because I think I might actually cry.
I think for both of us, it's been really satisfying, isn't it, to bring a car back to life that was essentially, destined for the scrapyard.
Seeing it in the state it was when we picked it up to how it is now, it's an incredibly proud achievement.
Yeah, really good.
There's still more to do, but we'll get in there.
No, I'm not going to lie to you, because when I first saw the car, I thought, oh my God. I mean, there is everything on it, from those door mirrors that seem to be hand painted with someone's leftover nail varnish to the Hammerite black stripe on the door. And I thought, I bet the interior of this is going to be absolutely knackered. I thought it was going to smell like, when cars smell of like wet dogs and like tat that you've picked up from car boot sales. I thought it was going to smell like that, but actually getting inside, to say that this is a 140,000 mile car, the one thing that I'm going to give it 10 out of 10 for straight away is the interior. So I wanted to show you the driver's seat, because even that, which of course will have had somebody sitting on it for the whole 140k, is still remarkably in one piece. And that's very rare for cars of this era where the seat's been made of velour. So that immediately tells me that the fabric used must have been quite high quality, which doesn't surprise me, because Nissans do tend to be, especially of this era, they do tend to be of a very good quality. The plastic not so much, because there's a couple of dints, knocks and bits missing out of the dash, so I want to show you those there. But look, we're playing about here today with a car that cost less than a few £100s, so I wasn't expecting something that was about to win a trophy. Well, unless there's a trophy for banger of the rally. Coming inside, everything seems to be roughly working as I would want it to. So over here we've got the glove box, so I'll show you that. Now that still shuts really nicely. I mean, you get in things sometimes. So I went in an RS2000 earlier last year, and the glove box didn't even shut as nicely as that. So I think sometimes people are so quick to trash budget cars, but actually the quality on them sometimes can be very understated. Coming into the centre, it's as simple as you like. So we've got the heater panel there, and you know what? The heater on this is really, really good. Got an analogue clock, and something that I really liked was the original radio. The boys tell me that when they got the car that it wasn't working, so what they did was they had a bit of a meddle about with it, put some new £12 speakers in, which apparently they got off Facebook Marketplace, and away they went, because now the sound is very good. Can't show you that, otherwise YouTube will put a strike against me. Thanks. Now coming in front of this, we've got kind of what I'd expect really, and a little bit of a bodge. So let's talk about the bodge. This light here, this switch, this is for the reverse, because this is now an auto, but we're going to come back to that in a minute. To the left of that, you've got your rear heated screen, a few dials in front of you there, just fuel gauge, mileometer, temperature gauge, and a couple of warning lights. And over on the right hand side here, we have got the fog light. Two stalks give us, to our right, indicators and our lights there. And over to the left hand side, we've got our wipers. So one of the really nice things about this is, and you don't get this on every single 80s car that you take out, is it's got intermittent as well. You don't realise how much you like that until you don't have it. Steering wheel is, well, wonderfully brown. Everything's very brown in here, which I quite like. It's better than the boring black and grey moulded plastic of today. Horn there for you. And that there is just a bit of a quick whistle stop tour through. It's very different to some of the other Nissans that we've taken out. It kind of feels like it's related to that Cherry that we took out, but still very, very different. The Bluebird again felt miles on from this, but look, it's just nice to test different things, especially of different quality, and show you them. So before I talk to you about this gearbox, because it's not the one that it was sold with, and I will explain why, let's get the car started up so you can hear how she sounds. Let's get her started up. Now, just for reference, we have got that 1.3 engine under the bonnet. It's, of course, the E13 engine used in many of the cars. The E engines were used in many of the Nissan cars, including things like the Cherry. I think they used them in the Bluebird as well. So let's get her started up and you can hear what she sounds like. Of course, we'll shoot from the back as well, so you can hear what you'd sound like inside as a passenger, and if you were someone who didn't quite make the grade to get in the car. Probably not as noisy as you were expecting. It's still pretty quiet in here, so we'll head to the back and you can hear how she sounds from there. Now, rather interestingly, the gearbox on this one isn't the original, and I'll tell you why. The first owner was the lady's father, so the boys bought the car off the lady owner, and it was her father's car. Her father had it as a manual. She couldn't drive a manual, so she changed it over to auto, which has meant it is a little bit sluggish. So the auto on this is a fully automatic box with 3-element torque converter and 2 planetary gear change. We've got 3 forward speed and we've got reverse there, and the final drive is integral. So we're going to head off for a drive, and you'll be able to see as we drive along just what I mean by how sluggish it is. Now, I wanted to show you what we were doing with this, so I'm going to put my foot down and you can see how we catch up. Nice little K10 Micra there, spotted. The little sister of these, of course. Now, realistically, we are going very slowly. I've got my foot flat to the floor and we're not even making 50 miles an hour. This is probably one of the slowest cars we've taken on test in absolutely ages. Now, I do perhaps wonder if this automatic box has seen better days, because selecting a gear, well, selecting drive is a bit of a challenge. I was almost having to stir it round a little bit, like stirring soup with a spoon, and that's not great. But look, it's a £300 car. I'm sat here picking faults in it, I really shouldn't. Now, whilst this wouldn't be your vehicle of choice for any bank robberies or the car you jump in if you were late to your dentist appointment, it's actually a very pleasurable drive, and it's pretty well specced up as well for a daily driver. So we've got a very generous heater. Almost immediately you get that warm air coming out, heats up the whole car adequately. The cabin feels very warm, which is lovely. You know, it doesn't feel too over the top, but it's very pleasant. We have, of course, got discs to the front on this. As we came into the 80s, we said goodbye to 70s cars that were, for still some unknown reason, running on drums and dynamos, and we said goodbye to all of that, and we started to usher in an era of what I like to call that Japanese accuracy, because you look at Japanese cars, especially of this era, and they're just so well put together. Even examples like this that have really been through it seem to have stood the test of time very well. Of course, with the age of the car, the visibility is great. We haven't got any of those unsightly pillars that are blocking all our view. And another good thing about the older cars like this is that even though it's smaller than a modern SUV, even kind of your smaller to mid-range SUVs, you've got more legroom. I mean, you don't have all the crash protection, but you know, you've still got all that room around you. And for a budget car, it's great. Now, on the sales brochures for these, it tells you they'll get up to 93 miles per hour. But the only way I can see this one getting up to 93 is if it's on the back of a tow truck. It's very slow. I would like to have tested, well, would like to test at some point a manual to see if it's a bit more sprightly. And again, of course, we are looking at the bottom of the range, so you would have got your 1.3, your 1.5 in the UK. So I imagine the 1.5 coupled with an auto would have had a bit more oomph about it. But of course, this was never sold as an auto. With it being sold as a manual, they wouldn't have been able to say, well, you know, if you are going to go for an auto, maybe go for something with a bit more oomph to it. The accelerator pedal's quite heavy on this. So whilst you're driving along, you just feel like your foot is constantly down, even on these straight stretches of road. So for me, whilst you've got a very comfortable driving position, it's lovely and warm inside the car. And to say that it's a car that hasn't been restored, or I don't think it's been, you know, overly well looked after, it looks like it might have lived outside for a period of its life. It's held up really, really well. It's a cheap classic for somebody to get going with. And I think that's the joy with some of these Nissans from the 80s, is that they do stand up really well as cars that you can drive every day, and usable classics that you don't have to worry about bringing out. But you still got that potential to enjoy it, buy it cheaply and fix it up yourself. It also came into a world where Nissan were diversifying their lineup, because of course the early 80s is when we saw the Micra arriving. Nissan were making real traction in sales in the UK, and really our market in the UK was really warming up to the potential of Japanese cars. So it's always exciting taking Nissans from this era out, because there would have been a point when choosing a car like this was a bold choice. So it might look really normal, and Nissan badge might look really normal in a car park today, but back then it was a little bit, you know, it's a little bit daring to go for something like this. So it's really nice to take it out. It's often hard to get cars like this for test, because unfortunately they've all lived through that trap of being cheap cars. Cars like this still are very cheap, and as Aaron was talking about earlier, wanting to scrap it, you know, you always come up against that element that people find that there are too many problems, or they don't want to sort it anymore, and they just get rid, and stocks dwindle, and stuff that was once every day just disappears. So it's been a real pleasure bringing you this car today, because whilst no, I've not at any point told you that it's a concourse example, it's lovely to see that there are still cars out there which young enthusiasts can get their hands on, make real effort with, do real impactful stuff to, and get themselves a modern classic that they can really enjoy day to day. So that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully in a year's time we'll be able to come back and visit Aaron and Ryan and have a look at the car and see it move forward, or perhaps they'll have swapped it up for something else entirely, and it'll be enjoying life on somebody else's driveway. So that's it from me today. I hope wherever you are in the world you are safe, you're well, and until next time, take care and drive safely.